What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me is my great co-host, Fede Perez. And guys, it is officially World Cup season. The hype is here. We're finally in June. We finally have our final 26 names, the first 26 names, or the first names on a World Cup squad for Paraguay since 2010. And we know that we're going to dedicate this entire episode to the reaction of who we have on the team, a lot of other things going on as well. No, this is going to be a special episode, and obviously we're decked up in the Albiroja. Fede has the one from the 2011 Copa America. I have the new one, which many people say it's not the best one, but hey, I gotta wear it because now we're full in Albiroja mood. We're full in Paraguay mood. Here we are. We are literally 9 days away, 10 days away from the first game against the United States. 9 days away from the start of the World Cup. And I feel in that World Cup fever, Fede. I think it's now after seeing yesterday's, and at the time of recording, the announcement from Gustavo Alfaro, the obviously the Poncho Pou, the sort of Poi, I think it's called. Sorry, that sort of announcement given of the 26 names, and it was really expectant, and it was really good to see that. But I gotta ask you, Fede, how are you feeling now that we're finally in June, in that we can finally focus on La Roja?
Oh, it's great to be back, Roberto. Great to see you. Great to be talking about the Roja and this World Cup month. We've been waiting for this for so long, and we're gonna be doing so many special episodes and different things, different content for our channels, for our viewers, for people that follow us everywhere on TikTok and everywhere else that you can find Guarani Vision. Every day is a new agenda for this team, right? You're seeing it day by day, and in the practices, they got new things coming every day with the list that just came out yesterday. Today, I believe, was the opening ceremony also of the new hotel and the facilities that the FA wanted to show in the city of Ipané. They've done renovations there. They had Santiago Peña there, the president, with the CONMEBOL president also Alejandro Dominguez. The FA really invested a lot of money into this new practice field just to make sure that the players got a sense of where they're going to play real soon in the US and also be comfortable in their new building, in their new hotel, which is where they're actually spending their time before heading directly to California, right? We have a friendly also coming up. We're definitely going to look forward to that. I don't know if we're going to see much of the team that we're going to see against the US, but we can definitely start imagining what the team can look like now that we've officially seen the 26th, the list, and there was a late call. There was that one last guy that came in through the door, and it was Isidro Pita. Maybe to some a surprise, maybe to some not, but he did have to leave somebody out, right? I'm talking about Gustavo Alfaro and his decisions about probably leaving out Matias Villasanti, other players also being getting that phone call of, oh, unfortunately, I gotta leave you out because you're not 100%. You haven't been playing much. It comes down to those decisions. We talked about it before, right? I mean, that's why he gets paid the big bucks because he has to make those important decisions. And these were the first important decisions, making the list and making some dreams a reality also because you saw the reactions on social media from some of our players posting videos, posting pictures. It just makes it you just I believe when you start seeing all that on social media, that's when you realize how important it is for these guys and what they're about to accomplish and what they're about to live.
2 million, almost $3 million per year for Alfaro to make those decisions. So, talk about having some pressure to say to those guys, hey, you're not going to the World Cup. And, obviously we can talk about the ones that did miss out afterwards. But yeah, personally, I gotta ask you, what do you think of the announcement video? I feel like I've seen some reaction from people that it's like, oh, maybe they should have been a bit more creative because all the other announcement videos from other countries, Ecuador did one on like the immigrants that are based in New York. Norway got the king of Norway to do it. Sweden, England had like a Beatlemania style one for their announcement. Everyone was so creative, but I genuinely liked it. I enjoyed the woman making the poncho and Luis Alberto de Paraná playing in the background and of course Alfaro announcing those names. I think you have no better person than to do it, I think. Even if people say, "Oh, it's an Argentine, it has to be Paraguay." No, there is no one better that could have done it. But I loved it, bro. I saw it, I think, at least 100 times, and I got emotional every time I see it. But I wanted to see what you thought. Surely you loved it too, man.
Yeah, I enjoyed the video, man. I thought we were. Everybody was waiting for it, obviously, what they were going to show and just what kind of culture they were going to try to link up there. It was a surprise to see the poncho there, which is something that's very used here in Paraguay, especially when it gets cold at this time around. A lot of people are actually looking for long sleeve shirts because of that situation, because it is going to be during winter here that people are going to watch these games. And to see the poncho there with all the players' names, it made it even special, even more special. I really like the small little details on it, the music behind it. It has a lot to do with our culture, the heritage, the history, and I love that they went back to that. Even the shirt that you're wearing has a lot to do with that, right? I mean, they tried to go directly in that direction of talking of where we're from, what we are about, and just our whole heritage and our culture in this country.
Yeah, bro, I agree. I think sometimes people you want to forget some of where their roots, and I'm not calling everyone out, but that being said, I think sometimes people need to remember like all these things. They're not doing it al pedo, as we say in Spanish. You're not doing it just to do it. I think people take special care about it. Whether or not the execution is different is done well is a whole different story. But the fact that the ideas came in to do something to keep it to the heritage and to the roots and to the culture of Paraguay, I think is important. So no, I enjoyed it, and yeah, I mean, we've seen some other ones. I saw one from Bueno that did a good one. I think I saw some other brands do it. So I think that's the good thing, that people genuinely are caring about this squad and that they're able to be creative about it, Fede.
Yeah, I think people are getting on the Alfaro wagon, on the Roja wagon as the days go by. I mean, people are getting more and more excited. This game, I think, is just gonna boost everybody up. I'm talking about the friendly that we're gonna have next Friday. Hopefully, we get a big result, right? Just to get everybody on the same side. Also, on the next day, they're gonna be making the trip already, so they're gonna have that farewell. It's really nice to see the guys here in Paraguay spend a couple of weeks. Even for some guys that haven't had enough time in the country. I mean, for the ones that weren't born here in Paraguay, and we have some of those in the list. I mean, it's got to be special to spend 2, 3 weeks in Paraguay for the first time and get that feel of what the fans want and really bond with them. I think that could even be the boost that you need. The emotional side of it of football is very important. I think Gustavo Alfaro also is thinking about all those little details because he's very smart about that, about motivating players, about getting in players' heads. And I think, just having this whole training ground here in Paraguay, also the friendly that he wanted to do here in the country, it has a little bit to do with that, right? Just to have everybody hyped up, especially the players, as we head into the first game against the US.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now that we have now sort of that hype train, let's go by the players. And this is where we're going to do something a bit different. We're not going to just name the players. We are going to go one by one and just give our reaction to how we feel, talk about just anything that stands up to your mind. So I think yeah, are you ready for this, Fede? Let's do it.
Let's do it. It's 26. We got him.
26 names. All right, let's start out with the goalkeepers at number one. And I'm giving you the jersey numbers first, because all the jersey numbers are different, but it's in different order. But we're gonna go position by position. Let's start off with number one, Roberto Gatito Junior Fernández, 38 years old, 6'3", playing at Cerro Porteño. I mean, I think it's one of the names that to be honest, Fede, I think when you go back, 2 years ago, you didn't expect him to come back to the squad. Certainly he was a player that, was basically a reserve, at Botafogo. Obviously he has that sort of heritage of being compared to his father, Gato Fernandez, Roberto Fernandez, the legendary goalkeeper, arguably one of the greatest of all time in the country after Justo Villar and Chilaver, obviously. But Alfaro brought him back. Obviously we saw him at the Olympics. That was kind of his first, return to the squad after some time. But then he comes in and he gives him the trust, even if he was not a starter. He either at Botafogo and then later at Cerro Porteño. He really adores him. And I think that's something that, well deserved for him, of course, making that squad 40 years after his father did in North America. So, you have that really cool connection. But Gatito there, I mean, no surprises. I guess the big one will be, and we'll talk about all the other goalkeepers if he does make the start. But overall, I mean, what a last 2 years for Gatito Fernandez.
Yeah, it's been great to see him back with the team, with his friends also in that defense, in that midfield, because he's been part of that generation, right? That has been living the worst times with this national team and now getting the opportunity to go to the World Cup. He knows what it's about, just like other guys in this squad, going through the whole roller coaster. And he was with this team at its worst, and now he's gonna be able to enjoy the World Cup. That's the good side of it. He's a natural leader. He doesn't talk that much. You always see him. He even looks kind of shy, even when he's talking on interviews. He's always keeping his voice down, but that's how goalkeepers sometimes are, right? They don't need to make themselves known that much, but do the right things in the games. Unfortunately, he did make a couple of mistakes along the way in some friendlies, and the amount of minutes that he's had over these last two seasons maybe hasn't been enough for the staff, and that's why they started looking for different options. I mean, like never before, we had many goalkeepers during this qualifiers, Roberto. And Roberto Fernandez was probably the only one that guaranteed us that spot. That's why Alfaro trusted him so much, and that's why I believe he's also taking him to this World Cup because he's shown enough already.
Yes, absolutely. And, it's going to be interesting to see if he continues this sort of form and ultimately if he gets the starting role. I mean, rumors are to report that he will play, that he will be the starting goalkeeper during the World Cup, but, a lot can change in in a week's time. So we're gonna have to wait and see. The other one that we have to talk about in the second goalkeeper of the three is number 12, Orlando Gil, 25 years old, 6'2", from San Lorenzo. I mean, this was a name that, certainly at the beginning of last year was starting to make his attention to all of the general Paraguayan club. I mean, not really a lot of people had seen him play because he played in San Lorenzo in Paraguay, which obviously that's where he's from. It's kind of funny how this all works that, he grew up in San Lorenzo. He started off at the Sportivo San Lorenzo at Gatito, and then he moves to Argentina to play in San Lorenzo. He's actually at the reserve team, Fed, if you remember, and then he is getting some good performances on the squad over there in Argentina, and yeah, then he makes his debut for them against Peru, in that World Cup qualifier, the first ever win for Paraguay in a World Cup qualifier in Lima, and then yeah, he's getting a lot of position, he's getting a lot of starting roles as well, and certainly for him, I think he's one of the more informed goalkeepers, but I think for a competition of goalkeepers that, all of us have to deal with, it's such a imposing and very important position. I think him making that squad is something that, again, everyone expected, and I guess we're gonna have to wait and see if he does become first choice. But hey, at least he's the one that is really in form and doing well in Argentina. So one of San Lorenzo's best player.
Yeah, his life has changed so much, right? During these last couple of years, going to Argentina, moving from one country to the other, and becoming one of the stars in that team, right? I mean, he's not just the goalkeeper, he saved them so many times. That's why he started catching people's attention. And he looks like a European goalkeeper. And apparently, after the World Cup, he will be playing in Europe. There's a lot of rumors about that. That his stock is rising, and he's eventually going to be sold from San Lorenzo to a big league. I think he has everything ahead of him. He's out of the three goalkeepers that we're taking, the youngest one. He's the one that probably has the brightest future. For the other two, it could be now or never. Of being the starting goalkeeper in a World Cup. That's why I think I don't know if he has less opportunities than the rest because of that situation. Sometimes in that goalkeeper position, coaches like to go with the experienced ones and with the ones that are the loudest. That could be Olveira also, as we're heading into that name. But I love Orlando Hill. I love what he's brought to the team. I love how serious he's been, how professional he works. Everybody talks really well about him being a humble guy, and he's just fitting perfectly in that locker room, Roberto. That's why I think he ended up earning the spot over other names, right? Let's not forget about Carlos Coronel and other goalkeepers that were also considered during the qualifier.
Yeah, absolutely. And the third goalkeeper that we will talk about is the one that came right at the end of the sort of process is Gastón, number 22, Gastón Olveira, 33 years old, 6'3", from Olympia. Obviously, someone that we obviously know very well, having played in Olympia for obviously a couple years, and because he played there for a couple years, he got Paraguayan citizenship, and that made him eligible as a naturalized Paraguayan to get called up. And you feel like that was the way to go. It was been a debate about who was going to join Gill and Gatito, and Olveira gets the nod. And he played obviously that game against Greece, kept a clean sheet in his first game. You know, a lot of controversy, of course, because of the fact that he's one of the few Paraguayan players to play on this Paraguay national team, despite not having any Paraguayan blood. There's only been a couple of players in our history, Fede, that have actually been naturalized Paraguayan without having any sort of Paraguayan family. But he's on there based on his form. It's crazy. He could have been a Uruguay goalkeeper 4 years ago. He could have played in that World Cup, but now he switched La Celeste for La Roja. But again, I feel like he is someone that has done very well for Olimpia. He's been basically the best goalkeeper in the league for that time period. And Olimpia have been, up and down, but I think you have to recognize that, and it's a crazy story for him. But ultimately, he gets the chance to head to the USA with La Roja.
Yeah, if we would probably already knew who the starting goalkeeper was going to be in this World Cup, I don't know if Olveira was going to be in there, or maybe if we had two very good young goalkeepers standing out, maybe they would probably be heading into this World Cup. I don't think he was going to take another experienced goalkeeper, but that's just the way I think, right? Because Alfaro's always thinking about age. That's also something that he always considers moving forward. Even I don't know if he's only thinking about this World Cup because there's rumors that he wants to stay and he might even manage 2030. But that's the big picture. As for Gastón Olveira, obviously having the opportunity of becoming Paraguayan and in a certain sense say thanks to the country this way playing under the Albirroja and having the opportunity to have the whole country with you because he already has half of the country always rooting for him because he plays for one of the biggest teams here, which is Olimpia. And now he's also going to try to gain, that other side of the country that has always gone against him because he's always stood out in those big games against Cerro Porteño and the Super Clásicos. He's always shown up big in games, also in Libertadores. So he's one of those goalkeepers that can stand out in the big stage. I think he's proven that before, and I think that could come into the consideration when you think about why not him being the starting goalkeeper in this World Cup. But I mean, he's been one of the best goalkeepers in the local league, no doubt about it, over the last 5 years. He's maintained his level, which is not something easy, which is not an easy thing to do. He's never had a competition for the spot in Olympia because ever since he came, he took over. So it's really good to see one of the good guys on our side now. Just like we're probably going to talk about Mauricio later on, but Gastón Olveira was one of the last names that came into this list in this group, and we'll see if he can be one of those guys that Alfaro ends up trusting so much that he might even make it to the starting team in this World Cup.
Absolutely. Gonna have to wait and see. Now we go to the defense. At number three, Gustavo Gómez, 33 years old, 5'10 from Palmeiras, the center back, the captain of this team, obviously has the responsibility of predecessors like Justo Villar, like Carlos Gamara, like Jose Luis Chilaver, like Rogelio Delgado in the past. And now he gets the responsibility of captaining his team at the World Cup. And I mean, look, it's been an incredible, I don't want to say way to get there, but it's certainly been ups and downs. I mean, we've seen that. He's been involved in 4 qualification campaigns since 2014. He's seen it all. He's been through it all. He's been criticized throughout everything. And, obviously he's such an inspirational leader for Palmeiras and of course for Paraguay. I think, all the recognition that he should be given for what he's been doing for Palmeiras as one of their greatest ever players, maybe the best Paraguayan player ever in Brazilian football history. Now he gets the chance to captain his country, and certainly he's going to be someone that is is going to get a lot of attention. The Mariscal, as we say, there's always that important nickname that we have to give him, and I think we have to give this to Gustavo Gómez, the guy from San Juan Bautista Misiones. I think it's certainly for someone that's been through all these processes longer than anyone, he gets the chance to finally captain his team at a World Cup.
Yeah, man, he's our sheriff, right? He's our mariscal. He's our captain. He has so many good nicknames around his personality.
It took a while for, of course, it took a while for him to get those nicknames. Let's be real.
Yeah, it did. I mean, at a certain point, you thought that he was going to have a long career in Europe, right? When he made it to Milan, and you were thinking to yourself, okay, this guy, we're going to have a center back for a while there in Europe. But then he ended up, coming to Brazil, and he became a legend in Palmeiras. I mean, from 2018 till now, I mean, so many things have happened with the Libertadores and with him standing out, being the captain in that team also, and with the national team, just like you said, he's just like Gatito Fernández, as we talked before. He went through it all, and being one of the captains, he had to he had to eat a lot of those and swallow those hard times, and it must have been really hard for him, and to see his team now heading to the World Cup with him being this mature. He's now 33 years old. I mean, he's probably his prime has passed him by a bit, but you can see that he's still one of the best players in Palmeiras. He's going to take this tournament in a very special way. I think your money is guaranteed with Gustavo Gómez Portillo. He's always shown his stuff. He can also make a difference when he has the opportunity to head balls in the box. He scored important goals already for Palmeiras as a center back. I mean, let's not forget about that. He's very important in set pieces. So from the football aspect of it, and besides being one of the best center backs that I've seen over these last couple of 15, 20 years, I mean, I'm really looking forward to what Gustavo Gomez is going to do in this World Cup. He's definitely our captain, and he's leading the way. He's an example in that locker room.
He is a big example. And another guy that is a big example, number six, Junior Alonso, also 33 years old, 6'1", Atletico Mineiro, left back, and also center back sometimes. But of course, Jurgen, as we know, obviously someone that also has been around the block for quite some times. I think three qualifying processes, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, he was also part of that U20s team that went to Turkey, finishing the round of 16, where obviously we'll talk about other players, but him and Gustavo, those are the two boys that were together for quite some time. Junior, as we know, has been, on a European odyssey. When he first started, he was at Lille, he was at Celta Vigo. Then he came back to South America, played for Boca Juniors, played for Atletico Mineiro, even went to Russia for some time. But he was always someone that kind of demonstrated what it meant to be a really good defender. I think he's someone that, hopefully can answer some critics, because he's gotten a few in the past, in the last recent games, especially because he like you mentioned with Gustavo, they're getting at that age and not so young anymore as they used to be, but very versatile. Like I said, he could play as a left back and play as a center back. He's been through all that experience playing for some of the biggest leagues in the world against some of the best players in two continents. So yeah, similar to Gustavo, he's a good example that not just obviously his teammates should have, but also other Paraguayans should have as well.
Yeah, and he has the experience, right? I mean, he played several Copa Americas with this team also. He played the under 20 World Cup back in 2013, so he already has that experience under him. He's not gonna feel uncomfortable or nervous at any game. He's always shown that
He's
personality
always
also.
been
He
serious. I don't think I've ever seen him smile in comparison to
He's
other guys.
very serious. Yeah, yeah. He doesn't smile that much. He doesn't express himself that much. But he's a leader. He's a captain also in the locker room, and he's one of those serious guys. He just gets to work. I don't know if he's probably in his best form as of right now. I follow the Sudamericana a lot because I do those games also here in Paraguay, and what I've seen from him and his team lately, the fact that he's playing a center back there, he doesn't play as a left back, is he even speaks better of him, right? That he can do it in the national team, that he can do it at that level, and not need to do it in his club. And thankfully he fits in the role in a place where we don't have that many alternatives, right? We don't have that many left backs, especially that have had a career like his, playing for very good coaches, under very good coaches, and in very good teams across Europe. And he's so important in his team. I believe he just said goodbye in Mineiro. Apparently his future is going to be in the MLS. He didn't want to say the club name when he made his trip here to Paraguay for the training camp, but apparently his career is gonna after the World Cup gonna be heading into the same place. He's gonna stay around there in the U.S. after the World Cup.
Yeah, rumors are suggesting that he's going to play in Atlanta, that he'll be with Miguel Almirón, another teammate of his for many, many years, that we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, obviously, Junior Alonso gets all the respect that we get. And another guy that also gets the respect is is obviously someone that, certainly, has really had an incredible sort of career. And so, wait, I mistake myself. I'm gonna have to confuse myself here. It was number 15 for Gustavo Gómez. My bad. I'm so sorry. Number three is Omar Alderete. Hope, we're not gonna edit that one because it's a podcast. We're gonna enjoy it and we're gonna have fun. But number 15 was Gustavo Gómez. Number three, Omar Alderete, 29 years old, 6'3", Sunderland center back, sometimes also a left back. I mean, what an incredible rise it's been for him, Fede. I mean, this was someone that, obviously was very talented from the start, obviously went to Europe very well. Firstly, he was in Argentina, came a rising talent playing at clubs like Gimnasia, Huracan. He went very young to Europe. He went to Basel, he played to Hertha Berlin, then he played in Spain at clubs like Valencia and Getafe. Now he's at Sunderland, a Sunderland team that got promoted and obviously are going to the Europa League next year, next season. But yeah, what a rise it's been for him. He really is that guy, kind of center back you want to have. And I think, obviously he really made a name for himself scoring those winning goals against Argentina and Chile in the Defensores. He really defines of what is a Paraguayan center back, no nonsense, someone that clearly knows what it means to play, good in the air. I think he's someone that is very much also effective when you go up front because I really like his left foot. I think he can score some bangers as we saw that in Brazil in the Copa America. Again, they lost that game, but still, he is someone that could do it all. And I think that's exactly the all-around center back, the typical Paraguayan center back that you want to have. But for Omar's sake, I mean, I think this is a guy that, him and Gustavo, it looks like that's going to be the partnership for the World Cup. I think people are going to really enjoy his performances because of what we've already seen in the Premier League, him handling some of the best defenses in the world. Now he's going to do the same at the World Cup.
Yeah, I remember when I started watching him, not so much in Cerro Porteño, but because he obviously caught my eye already there. But when he made it to the Bundesliga and he started going up against the huge guys there, like Holland and company, and you could see that he didn't have much problem with them. You could see that he was ready for it and that he was going to take it to another level. That it was going to be up to him to have a great career, and he did. I believe make the right choices, going to different clubs, having a feel in different big leagues. Because just like you said, I mean, he played in Germany, then he played in Spain, and then now he's playing in the Premier League. So he's definitely been able to make the right moves for a center back to get that experience and to get on and just to keep evolving as a player. And we've seen that over the years with Omar Alderete. He's just gotten better and better as the seasons go by. And even this last one, I mean, Ralph was always talking about him, right? Every opportunity we got, he was fascinated with what he was bringing to Sunderland, and I was also because he became a leader there, and he could be that guy, right? He could be the one that stomps on you. He could be the bad guy when you need him to be in the center back position, and he can make the difference. Also, being so huge. When he needs to attack the balls also from the corners. Hopefully he can make the difference in set pieces also. I think he's one of those guys, and he fit in just perfect alongside Gustavo Gómez with that left foot and with everything that he brings to the team. He's one of those guys that you can rely on having the ball also, which is something that you need a lot from the center backs. That's something that I feel particularly comfortable with him. I don't know if I felt that comfortable when Junior Alonso was there, when we had two right-footed center backs, right, with Fabian Balbuena, that at a certain point that was the situation. But it's great to see Omar Alderete winning his spot over by just playing well and just evolving into this tremendous European player that we just hope after this World Cup he plays even in a bigger club.
Well, they got Europe next year, so maybe it's going to be a lucrative offer that will probably take him out of the Black Cats. But that's a discussion for once the season starts. The next name we're going to use is Juan Jose Cáceres, 26'6'1" from Dynamo Moscow in Russia, the right back. I mean, this is the first naturalized player that we're going to tell, well, the second naturalized player that we're going to talk about on this squad, but the first one with Paraguay heritage, because obviously this is an Argentine-born player from Dock Sur, but his parents from San Pedro, so way up in the countryside, Fede, he decides to defend his Paraguayan roots and his family to play on this team, and he certainly has established himself as that right back, as we call him in Paraguay, Orejas or Ñambi, because of his, let's say, big ears. Let's admit it as that as it is. But him being on that squad, I mean, he really made a name for himself. Not a lot of people knew of him. I think he had like a friendly before the actual qualifiers with Alfaro. Everyone was saying, "Who is this guy?" He's not really known. But then it came that day against Brazil where we won 1-0 with the Gómez goal, and he marked out Vinicius Jr., who was arguably the best player in the world. I think he won the best or one of those FIFA awards in that time span. And I think that was where everyone thought, okay, this guy is real. This guy is our trustworthy right back. But it's funny that we're talking this the day after his birthday. He celebrated his birthday with a call up to the Paraguay national team for the World Cup. What a fantastic birthday present it is for him. But he's someone that it's not really talked about. He doesn't really talk about. He's quite shy, but he's always been someone that has been effective. And I think I'm gonna say, man, I think he's gonna be one of those underrated players that the world is gonna figure out for the first time, because I think he's someone that could really be effective and really put out a ship. But for someone that decides to defend his country of his parents, I think is all the respect that you need to give. But happy for Juan to make that team.
Yeah, he's done so much to earn that spot and keep it, right? Game by game. I mean, he just brings the same to the game, to the team, just that fighting spirit that he has, that warrior mentality, even the way that he approaches games, right? I mean, you give him an assignment like they gave him in that game against Brazil, try to stop Vinicius, and he really had him on his pocket. He was a bull out there. He didn't let him do absolutely anything. And I'm hoping that he has those kind of performances, being a defensive right back when he needs to be, and when he needs to be more of an attacking right back, he can also do it because he centers the ball really well. See, he also has that quality in him. We saw that in many games here in Defensores del Chaco during the qualifiers. So I think this is a player that is just going to get better and better with the years. I don't think we're going to see the best of him yet in this World Cup. I think he has so much ahead of him. He's still very young, I believe. I mean,
26. He just turned 26.
26. He's definitely going to be able to play the next World Cup if he keeps it up his level. Let's not forget Paraguay is going to play this World Cup and already the next one. So I'm already thinking about which players are going to make that cut, Roberto. And I think Juan Jose Cáceres could be one of those guys. He's that good, right? And he's been keeping his level also in Russia. It's not that easy to go over there and stay in a place like that, but he's been so professional, and he's fit in so well in this locker room with the guys. He's just one more in there, and they love him. They love him. They're always taunting him because of the ears and stuff like that. But he loves it. He even makes fun of it, and sometimes when he's celebrating goals, he even goes for it.
It's beautiful to see. One of the other guys that has made the squad is someone that's been around the block. He's been around the block in the Paraguayan league, but not a lot on the national team, because he was kind of a late bloomer, as we say over here in the States. But at number 2, it's Gustavo Velázquez, 35 years old, 6'2", from Cerro Porteño, right back, also center back sometimes as well. And I think that also shows how versatile he is. The fact that, like I said, he is that late bloomer that could play as a right back, as a center back. He made his debut at 33, man. El Cururu, as we say in Guarani, the frog, makes the squad. He's someone that, obviously we've seen, at Cedro, we've seen at Nacional, Luqueño. He's also had some stints in Mexico, in Argentina, and Newell's. He was there for quite some time before he came back. So, he's someone that's been around the block for quite some time. But he's also someone that is effective, and also I think it's good for team morale. A lot of people speak highly of him. I think even Julio Enciso said in an interview that, he really likes him because of how he can, joke around, he brings that humor, and that's always important for any team to have that class clown. Every World Cup team needs to have it. Every Paraguay team needs to have it. And so I think him, despite being, of course, a very talented player, no doubt about it, but being that class clown and being that also that's someone that can give joy to Paraguayan players and to the people. He's had some good games as well. Let's not forget, of course, he played some really crucial moments. Again, I don't think he makes the starting role at the minute, but as a good deputy, as a good substitute, I think it's well deserved for him. But again, what a crazy story it's been for him to get to the World Cup.
Yeah, and especially these last couple of months have been kind of rough for him also under Cerro Porteño, dealing with a couple of injuries. At a certain point, you didn't know if he was going to get back in form, if he was going to be able to end the season playing, but he was able to do it, and he's Cerro Porteño's captain. He's one of the leaders in that team, and his experience. He's now going to take it to the World Cup. He's going to be one of those guys that, just like you're saying, you're going to see him enjoy the World Cup because it could be the only one that he's going to play. And just and his story is just, it's one of those guys that had to play football in the countryside, had to play for really small teams to try to even make it later on in life to play for bigger teams. So it's been really rough for some of these guys. And Gustavo Velázquez went through it all before getting his breakthrough with Danny Garnero, right? I think he was the coach that called him up first, just like you said, over 30 years old already, and getting that opportunity to do something with the national team. He had to go through the worst in that last Copa America, and now he's gonna enjoy his role. His secondary role in this defense. I mean, he might need to come in certain games to let Juan Cáceres rest. He's gonna be that player on the right back that we might use sometimes. He's even played a couple of games under Holland lately in Cerro Porteño as a right back, so he can definitely give you a hand there when you need him. I don't think he's gonna play much as a center back, but as a right back, when you need a defensive right back, Gustavo Velázquez is ready for it.
Absolutely, man. Let's keep going, man. There's a lot of names, but hey, you got to feel the energy. I hope you're feeling that energy, Fede. Let's go to their next name is Jose Canale, number 13, 29, 6'3.5", Lanús center back. I mean, what a crazy story it's been for Jose Canale. I know crazy is something that we're going to repeat on this, but it's real. It's someone that, no one really had on his radar for basically the last few months, this whole year. I mean, yeah, there were rumors of him. He could be a sleeper pick because of what he was been doing, but he's been around the block playing in Paraguay, playing in Argentina. Now he's at Lanús. I think he really kind of got introduced to the public for scoring the winning goal, or, the goal that decided the title against Flamengo in the Recopa over there in the Maracanã, the famous goal in the last minute in the rain. It's always hard to beat Flamengo, but yeah, he really is that traditional center back again, really fitting the role as someone that, very rugged, left-sided. Many people thought he was, overlooked. He won the Sudamericana as well last year in Paraguay. So, a lot of Paraguayans also recognize that as well. But, for Canales' sake, I think he's someone that is really well deserved, honestly. Many people thought that maybe he wouldn't make it because there are other positions in like Ale Benitez or someone else, but him making that squad, and obviously he is 29, so it's going to be interesting to see if he gets another World Cup in. But for him to get this opportunity, Fede, to go and play for the Paraguay national team after, going around the block in Paraguay, Argentina, he was even at Mexico, not so recently at Querétaro, and now him going to Lanús and being important player, and for him to get that right at the death, I think is very. I'm very happy for him to make him, and he's an Itaúense as well, like my dad.
Yeah, and he never got to play in a big team in Paraguay as for the popular teams, right? Talking about Cerro or Olimpia, so he's gonna have Libertad fans alongside him. He played briefly for Nacional and Sol de America also, but I mean, I remember him mostly playing for Libertad several years here in the Paraguayan League, and then making that leap to Argentina, where he started probably growing as a player, evolving, getting stronger and stronger in the league. Where you have to go against fast and even rough players like the Argentines. So I think he really evolved into that rock that we see now in defense, that very strong player that it's really hard to get around. He's even scored a couple of epic goals, just like you said, in Sudamericana and that Recopa just a couple of months ago. So that could be huge. Coming into an important game, he's already scored those goals, so he's not gonna feel the pressure. He's not gonna get nervous going in a game, and I think he earned this spot because unfortunately one of his teammates had an injury, Ronaldo de Jesus. Ronaldo at a certain point was on the national team radar. Let's not forget about him. Forget about him also, but Jose Maria Canale took over the spot in Lanús and never looked back. he never let go of it, and he's been so consistent, Roberto. I mean, he barely rests in Lanús. He plays every single game, which talks very well about how fit he is, how professional, and how well he does his job. They love him in Lanús, and hopefully they'll love him even more now in Paraguay. Just like I said, he never played in Cerro in Olimpia, so this could be his break moment to make himself even more known in his country. I think people are gonna fall in love with Jose Canale, the Tarzan, like I like to see him with that haircut.
No, we got nicknames, man. We got obviously called nicknames. We had Nyambi, Orejas, El Cururu, and we get Tarzan. That's a beauty thing. We have to have nicknames. We have to. I hope someone on Twitter on social media has a list of all the nicknames. It'd be nice to see. The last guy, El Pibe, I guess we can say El Mitai. I guess we can call that a nickname. The youngest player on this squad, Alexandro Maidana, 20 years old from Talleres, left back. It's 5'8", number 26. Again, he's a player that everyone thought to myself, like, maybe he's too young, he's not ready, but he really bursted onto the scene at Guarani. He was part of that U20 team that went to their first World Cup and at that level in 12 years. So, he's someone that we obviously recognize as a whole, certainly someone that has been one of those leaders. I think he was even the captain of that team, if I'm not mistaken. But so he's someone that was, certainly really got into that team right at through the window. I said, he got called up. He played a few minutes in the last window, but for someone from Atira, the first Atireño actually to ever play in a World Cup, fun fact. Obviously played even at Resistencia. To think about it, he was in Intermedia not too long ago. And in the span of that time, he goes from Intermedia to Guarani to the U20 team to the World Cup to Talleres and now to the Senior World Cup in that amount of time. It's been a quick progression from him, and I have no doubt. We'll see if he gets a lot of minutes on the pitch at the World Cup. I have no doubt he will be European bound very, very soon.
Yeah, and he was playing as a winger. I remember in Intermedia, second division, when I started watching him, because I broadcast that second division here in Paraguay, and I remember asking people, "How old is that kid?" And when they told me that he was so young, I thought to myself, "Okay, this kid has a future because if he's playing in this level, and he's doing what he's doing, he's showing his stuff." Being so young, he has definitely a career ahead of him, and he really showed that. Just going milestone by milestone, heading into Guarani and making the difference there, becoming one of the best players in that team so quickly that teams from outside the country already started looking at him. And at a certain point, you thought that he was going to be sold to Europe, but then Talleres came along and signed him a contract immediately. He went to Talleres and he started playing right away, and that speaks for itself. That talks that when the coach saw him, they saw a player that was ready. We saw the same thing with Paraguay under 20s national team when he played, and when he came to the friendly, I believe, which it was against Greece that he had minutes. He played really decent. He was himself out there, and I think Gustavo Alfaro just wanted to kind of test him out, see how he felt with the rest of the guys. And he's the youngest one in there, and if they make him feel comfortable and he can be an important player in this team, I think he can have some minutes. Right when we need to attack by that left side, he's definitely gonna have an opportunity. And I think in certain games you might need to give him minutes. So it's gonna be his first experience, but I don't think it's gonna be the last time we're gonna see Maidana in a World Cup.
Absolutely, absolutely, and someone that, of course, will get the chance to finally shine at the World Cup. We're now heading into the midfielders, halfway there, Fede. Don't worry, we got this. Heading into the midfielders, we got to talk about number 10, Miguel Almirón, 32 years old, 5'10", from Atlanta United. Really been the face of Paraguay for the last decade, I would say. Someone that obviously, was a rising talent at Cerro Porteño. Then he goes to Lanús. Then he goes to Atlanta United, becomes a star there, plays very well under Tata Martino, wins their first ever MLS Cup. Then he goes to the Premier League and has become the face of, the influence, I would say, of opening doors for future Paraguayans. But, obviously had the attention there. Now he's back at Atlanta United as captain. But, he's someone that's, similar to Gustavo, similar to Junior, and similar to other players. I think, he's someone that deserves all the attention as well. So I think it's interesting that what a career it's been for him. I mean, it's been It's been amazing to see. He's been someone that, has gotten a lot of his critics for not performing well for Paraguay, ever since during that down period that they had, but he's always someone with the smile, very serious, very professional, never an issue with him. I feel like he's very adored at all the clubs that he played for what he's been able to do. And now he gets a chance to shine as the number 10 of Paraguay, such an important number in football, and more so for Paraguay to do this at the World Cup.
Yeah, and he's always performed under good coaches, right? I mean, I remember Jorge Fossati was his first coach back in Cerro Porteño in 2013 when he was breaking through, and he's one of those guys, just like Gustavo Gómez, that was probably destined, right? For this opportunity, for this chance of being one of the leaders in this team of his generation. Even he was one of those good players when he was already very young. That's why he had such a fantastic career, not only in Cerro Porteño, playing in Lanús, where they loved him. In Atlanta United, he, like you said, was the face of the Paraguayans for a long time, and they even made him come back because that's how much of an icon he is for them. In Newcastle United, he had his moments where he shined. He had his moments where we expected probably more from him, and his comeback to Atlanta United, I think, was just right on time. And it had to do with Tata Martino, the coach. It had to do with the World Cup coming around also. And just like I said, I mean, his best stuff has been under experienced coaches, and Gustavo Alfaro just knew how to use them, right? I mean, he's put him in the right places. He's gave him the right responsibilities to carry this team, and he's been one of the most important players under Alfaro in these last couple of years. He's no doubt about to become one of the leaders in that locker room, and I love to see that Miggy's finally going to play the World Cup in a place where he's done magical things in the U.S. Hopefully he feels very comfortable out there, and we can see the best Almirón, because when he's in his best form, when he's playing his best football, we know he can be a top of the world player.
Absolutely. And forgive me, Fede, I forgot one name in the defense. That's
Oh,
how
you left
I
somebody out,
did.
man?
I did. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm gonna forgive him. I'm gonna give him more time than we should have. And again, it's another veteran that we have to talk about. It's Fabian Balbuena. Fabian Balbuena, number 4, 34 years old, 6'2", from Gremio, the center back. Again, someone that's been around the block for quite some time. We know the experience that he's had in Brazil, playing for Corinthians. Now he's at Gremio. We even saw him in the Premier League, playing for West Ham. Someone that's obviously played in Russia as well. He's always had a weird career, I would say, with the national team. Sometimes a starter, sometimes a captain, sometimes a reserve, but he's always there, Fede. He's always in that team. El comandante, as we say, his famous salute that he always does in his celebrations. But, similar to, the likes of Gustavo, Júnior, Miguel, and so on, it's been a long time coming for him. He's been through so many processes, so many managers, and is someone that can, obviously be sort of that reliable player that you want to have on your side. When it gets tough and the game gets tired, he's in there to help you out when the going gets tough.
Yeah, and he's been playing for the national team over 10 years now. I think he started playing back in 2015. And you look at his numbers, and every time he played, he's performed. When they gave him the opportunity to be the starting center back alongside Gustavo Gómez, he always did a very good job. He's a player you can rely on when you need him. Obviously, as the years go by, he's more and more fragile. We've seen him barely play lately under Gremio. He's had a couple of important injuries that have kind of kept him away lately. I don't. He's one of those guys that I'm heading into the World Cup having my doubts just how well he can how well he can perform with the little time that he's played lately, especially in a World Cup in which you need to bring in that level. But Fabian, if he's 100%, if he can give us at a certain game when maybe Gustavo Gómez can't be there, or Omar Alderete, you might need a Fabian Balbuena, right? And he's such a good leader. Even if he's not playing, he's always happy. He's always picking up his players in the locker room. He's one of those guys that you want around. He's been a captain pretty much in every team that he's played. That shows that leadership in him. that fire, and he's one of my favorite players because he's such a good guy. Also, with everyone, he's one of those leaders that when the new player comes into the locker room, he's one of the guys that welcomes him and shows him the way. He's always been that guy, and just like Gustavo Velázquez, they met back in Cerro Porteño of Presidente Franco. They used to play back then. I remember in a very small team in the countryside, and both of those guys are not going to play the World Cup. It's so crazy to see these kind of stories, even of players that used to play together back. I don't know, what was it, 2010, 2011, right after that World Cup. I remember they were playing in second division. It's crazy to see how some of these guys have made it after that World Cup that we played. Now in 2026, they get their opportunity.
Absolutely. And another player that gets his opportunity, another one that's always been there. He's always been traveling around, being that globetrotter, and someone that always is also with a smile on his face is number 17, Alejandro Romero Kaku Gamarra, 31 years old, 5'5", Alain, center attacking midfielder, winger. I mean, he could do it all in that attack. Yeah, does he, Fede? But, he's someone that, again, has been around the block. He's someone that's obviously, he's also Argentine born. He represents his parents' country, who unfortunately have passed away. Actually, it's been quite a hard life on that end for Caco Romero. That unfortunately his parents will never see him play at a World Cup. But it's very unfortunate. But nevertheless, I'm sure he's made them very proud to play in the World Cup. I saw him the other day in an Instagram post of him wearing a Paraguay shirt when he was a kid. So it was clear as day that he was always going to represent Nadi Roja. And he's always been someone that is used as kind of that substitute, when tired defenders are there, him being that sort of pacey guy. But, I think, as someone that is, for someone that is traveling large distances, maybe not always a starter, barely even playing sometimes, but he's always there as a reliable squad player, and the players enjoy him as well, even if there is that sort of connection being Argentine born, that maybe there is also that kind of cultural differences as opposed to being born and raised in Paraguay. But he's always been there, Kaku. He's always been there, and he's always, kind of been reliable when necessary.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys in that locker room that don't speak Guarani, Roberto, and Kaku might be one of those, right? Because he didn't grow up here in Paraguay. He didn't have that, and but he did have the culture in his house with his parents, and he's always said, "I want to play for Paraguay because of what it meant to my mom, and it's gonna be more special now with what you said, right? I mean, I was remembering his post the other day. Mom, Dad, Kaku made it, right? I mean, it was. And you could feel it. It was just a couple of words, but it was so sentimental. It meant so much to him, and to do this for his family also. It's not just for him. And just like you said, I mean, he's one of those guys that was coming from the other side of the world, and he always did it with a smile. He barely played. He was always a sub. No coach found the right spot for Kaku Gamarra or the right games for him. He never played 2, 3 games consecutively for this national team. But if you need a spark, if you need somebody to have the ball, if you need a goal from a set piece like he's always scoring in his club, if you need a banger from outside the box, Kaku might be your man, right? And he can come in and make a difference. He can handle the ball and make the team move around him. He can be that number 10. Unfortunately, coaches don't like those players that much lately. They want everybody to be fighting for the ball and coming back to defense and helping out. Kaku doesn't do much of that. He needs to have the ball in his feet to make the difference. So I don't know if we're gonna see much of Kaku during the World Cup, just because lately, even in the friendlies, we haven't seen much of Kaku. He's kind of been losing his spot and losing his minutes, but you know how important he is to that locker room and how much they love him. Ever since Kaku Gamarra came to the national team, nobody has even thought of leaving him out, right? Because of the quality that he's always showing in his club, and just how much the guy loves him. I mean, he's so important to this group.
Is very, very important to this group. And another guy that is also very, very important to this group, another Argentine born but with Paraguayan parents, el Motorcito. I should know my Spanish better, promise. 30-year-old, 5'5", Vancouver Whitecaps, center defensive midfielder, Andres Cubas, number 14. He is someone that's not the biggest, but he's certainly someone with a lot of heart, fan. I mean, I enjoy watching this guy. He's a little holding midfielder. He came from the Boca Juniors product. He had his time in France and in Italy as well. He's been around the block. Now he's over there in Canada playing for the Vancouver Whitecaps in MLS. You know, but of course he always wanted to represent the team of his father. His father is the Paraguayan side of the family that made him represent the country. I mean, this guy is a bulldog, but a bulldog in the sense of him being someone that, like I said, you think you see this kid, this guy is like, oh, he's not gonna do anything. He's not tall, but man, that guy, he goes for every ball. He is able to interpret it. He's able to break the lines. He's someone that really puts in that heart and desire. I mean, they all do, but this guy, oh my God, I enjoy watching him. And I think, when we don't have him, we look like a different team. But this guy, I really enjoy watching him in that midfield. And I'm sure you do as well, Fede. But yeah, for him, to achieve the dream of playing, he's also someone that doesn't really talk as much. He's very quiet, but when he does it, he does his talking on the pitch. That's the perfect example of how I can describe Andres Cubas.
Yeah, you see Andres, you run into him in the streets and you don't think he's that much of a baller, right? But then you see him
I'd be
in the
scared of him. I'd
field.
be scared of him, Fed. If I had to play him on the pitch, I'd be, oh my God, this guy's gonna chase me everywhere.
Yeah, you might need to use a couple more shin guards or something, right? Because he's gonna eat you all up. I mean, he goes all over, and he even got messy. I remember back in the MLS, a bit nervous because of the way that he loves to tackle and just how hard he goes in every single play, no matter who. And he's had that experience with the national team playing against very important and big players. He's grown so much with the national team. I think the national team came at the right moment also in his career to kind of push him into that next level. He's already played in Europe. He played in France already. So, this is a guy that can do it in different levels. Now they love him in Canada. They love him in that team. They made the finals. So, I mean, come on. As of right now, he's one of the leaders also in this team, more in the pitch than outside of it, I would say. He, just like you said, maybe he's not that vocal. He doesn't talk that much with the guys, but what you need Kubas to do is get you that ball back, and he does do his job.
Does his job very well. Another one that does his job very well is Amiguito Ramon Sosa, number 7, 5'10", Palmeiras winger midfielder. He does a lot of things, but what an interesting career from him. The guy from Maracana, who made that jump from River Plate to Paraguay, then Olimpia, then he goes to play in Argentina when he was playing for Gimnasia. Then he moves to Talleres. Then he gets that move to the Premier League. I've had the fortune of being in England the day he scored his first goal for Nottingham Forest. It was a special moment. But then now he's returned to Palmeiras, which, it was unfortunate that he couldn't stay in Europe for quite some time, but he's still a very, very talented player, Fede. I mean, he's someone that can be a very potent attacking weapon. He was very good at the initial starts of if you remember the famous game against Peru where he felt like he was the best player on the pitch, but he just could not score. I think that was a lot of people's real introduction to Ramon Sosa. He's kind of fallen off just a little bit ever since that game, I would say, but I think he's still someone that could be useful. Maybe as a starter, maybe as a sub. Obviously he's very good friends with Julio Enciso. That's kind of one of his bros. But yeah, the guy from Maracana making it to the Paraguay national team and then to the World Cup. He's someone that could divide some opinion, but I think he's obviously very important to this national team.
Yeah, just like I said before, there's a couple guys that don't speak Guarani in this locker room. He's the one that wants to speak Guarani. I
He's the
remember he
only
was.
one. He's probably the most fluent Guarani speaker of them all. Let's be real.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys from the countryside, and he loves speaking Guarani. He's very proud of it. I remember Ralph telling his story back in the days of him and his first interviews after the games, and when he was standing out in River, and then doing the same thing in Olympia. And he wanted to do the interviews in Guarani because he told his dad that when he was going to be in national TV, he was going to speak Guarani because that's what they speak in Maracana, his hometown, and he got to people's hearts that way also, just being such a humble guy, so being such a common player, I would even say, just being such a down to earth kind of guy, and he's always so honest. He's always so open when he talks about his feelings and the way that he's had trouble with scoring with this jersey, and that's something that I believe has kind of held him back. He hasn't been able to score as much as you would want, as much as he tries. He always has plays. He's always making the difference, but you want to see him score more, right? I mean, he needs to end. He needs to finish more, and I think that's the thing that's going to give him more minutes. As of right now, he's a backup. As of right now, he needs to earn his minutes heading into the World Cup. But I do think we've seen the best out of him lately in Palmeiras. I mean, he's been a starter and he played a lot during these last couple of 5, 6 months in this year. So I'm really happy with Ramon Sosa. Just when I thought taking a step back, coming back from Europe wasn't probably the best decision, I'm actually happy with what everything he did in Palmeiras and playing alongside Gómez, Mauricio. I think he's felt really comfortable there.
Absolutely. And someone that we obviously have been enjoying his progress is someone that obviously we talk a lot about here, and he's had an incredible season, Fede. One of the best players so far, maybe the best player so far this season in Paraguay. Number 8, Diego Gómez, 23 years old, 6 feet, Brighton and Hove Albion, England, winger, center midfielder. He does a lot. I mean, what an incredible rise has been for him, man. I mean, we knew that promise when he made his debut at Libertad. I had the fortune of being at his debut for the Paraguay national team against Mexico, 1-0 win over there in Atlanta. Ralph can attest. But then it's been a constant evolution for him. I mean, he goes to Inter Miami, he plays with Lionel Messi and those stars, Suarez, Busquets, Alba. It's never easy to get into a locker room and be one of those best players, but he did so at such a young age. And then, of course, then making his move to Brighton and Hove Albion, he didn't have the chance to play too much with his boy Julio Enciso, but the seasons he's had has been incredible. Double digits, scoring even, 4 goals in a game against Barnsley in the EFL Cup, goals in the Premier League. I mean, we also know of the famous goal that he scored against Brazil in the World Cup qualifiers. That was kind of the game that everyone thought, okay, this is where Paraguay comes back. I mean, he could do it all, center midfielder, winger, defensive midfielder. He's someone that I think a lot of people enjoy. It's been hard for him as well with injuries. He's had quite an incredible story. He's also from San Juan Bautista, where Gustavo Gómez is from as well, also from the Libertad Predio, the academy. That's where he kind of grew up. But he's also been someone that's just been super humble, man. He's been one of our best representatives. And I think it's been very good to see him. And I'm super excited to see what he does at the World Cup. Remember when I was in Paraguay back in December, there's a billboard in that said, "Now's your time." And I think it is his time. And I think after what we've seen from the Premier League this season and, how Brighton are with those type of talents, I mean, this World Cup could really propel Diego Gómez into superstardom. And as crazy as that sounds, I think that's the reality, and that's how good he is. And I'm super excited to see what he does. I mean, again, we're going to give our flowers to Diego, but he's one of the few players that will give very, very much a lot of flowers. They all get their flowers, but this one gets way more flowers than, out of the other players. But yeah, Fede, take it away, basically. I'm sure you agree on me with a lot of these.
Yeah, he's one of the best players that we got on this team, right? He's one of the guys that we're gonna enjoy. We want to see him evolve during this World Cup, but we've seen probably his best stuff already in the qualifiers, scoring those important goals. That goal against Brazil is just one of those goals that I will remember for ages. He's such a hard worker, but also natural talent, right? I mean, I remember listening to people that used to watch him when he was little playing in his hometown, and he just wanted to get the ball and just take out everybody and start scoring. I mean, he could do it all, just like you said. I mean, he's so good out there. And even the different coaches that he's had along the way, they've all fallen in love with him because they can do so much with him and he can bring so much to the game. He can score. He can be a fighter in the midfield if you need him to. He can be a strategy player when you need him to be. And if you free him up, if you maybe even build a team around him, he could be that difference maker also. And he's not one of the flashy ones, Roberto. I mean, he lived in Miami. He's now playing in Europe and making the big bucks, but he's still that simple, humble guy. He was one of the less flashy ones when I saw him get to the airport here in Paraguay for training camp. He's one of the silent ones also during the practice, but when the games happen, that's when he shows up and that's when he turns it on. I'm so excited for Diego Gómez and his first World Cup. He's one of those talents that has really caught my eye in these last years. Ever since he left Paraguay, he's just evolved so much as a player, and he can do so much as this team. I have no idea where Alfaro is going to use him because he can play in so many
But
different
that's the best.
positions.
That's the good thing about him too, that he can do anything, and that's something that you need to have on this national team, especially at a World Cup.
Yeah, I'm totally with you in that sense, right? I mean that's something that usually helps out the coaches. It gives you a hand in certain games when you have a player that's not available. You can use him as a player right next to Andres Cubas, or you can free him up to attack a bit more. They even use him as a winger, like you said in Brian. So he can be that attacking player if you need him to be. Even though I don't think he's gonna be that important in that sense. I do think he's going to be more of the fighter in the midfield, especially with the way that we set up this team more defensively.
Absolutely. Heading into the midfielders, we got some more to finish off the midfields, but number 16, Damian Bobadilla, 24, 5'11 from São Paulo. Obviously, the name Bobadilla is very much familiar for Paraguayans because he is the son of the goalkeeper Aldo, who went to the last two World Cups as one of their goalkeepers. But unlike his father, he decides to play in the midfield, someone that bursted onto the scene at Cerro Porteño as one of their talented midfielders. Now he's in Brazil. He's very much that sleek box to box midfielder that Paraguay has kind of lacked over the years. That, he's someone that can work on all fronts. And I think he's demonstrated that. He's really just had this huge stock, I would say, Fede, ever since, really his when he basically been that starting midfielder for Paraguay under Alfaro. And now he's at Sao Paulo. Now he's playing in a big team at a big league, I'm sure. And because of his age, he's 24. I'm sure a World Cup can be the best opportunity for him to make another big jump to a bigger team in a bigger league. But the like we have with Gatito, we have another guy following in the footsteps of their fathers playing at a World Cup.
Yeah, and this is one of the young ones, right? I mean, he's just 24. I mean, his career has been kind of 3 years in Cerro Porteño, and I believe 3 years, 4 years now in Sao Paulo. So he's had that experience outside of the country also, becoming a man, I would say, and becoming that mature player that you want to see and evolve even as a more of attacking midfielder. I remember when he was starting in Cerro Porteño, they would use him more as a defensive midfielder and try to get the ball back, but he's always had that quality with the ball in his feet. He's very technical, and I think we're starting to see that in Sao Paulo. His numbers have started to rise. As he's been scoring many goals lately, and he's a regular in Sao Paulo. And it's not easy to play in Brazilian football as a midfielder. That's where the magic happens. That's where the creative players play, and he's been able to play there consistently. And there's even rumors that he's one of the next guys that's gonna come out of the Brazilian league, out of the South American football, and head to Europe. I think he has the world ahead of him with just being 24 years old. I think he's gonna end up in Europe after this World Cup.
I think he has a chance of surpassing what his father did. I think that's the crazy part. I mean, again, it's different because one's a goalkeeper, other's a midfielder, and one didn't play in Europe. But he's really on that projection. So we're not going to add too much pressure on him. We got to wait until he does at the World Cup. But he's on the right path. Someone that is also on the right path is someone that has had quite the interesting career. Number 20, Brian Ojeda, 25, 5'8", playing at Orlando as a center midfielder. Someone that came bursting onto the scene at Olympia. We even saw him playing in Argentina. Then he went to Nottingham Forest, actually, right before Ramon Sosa. He was one of the first guys um, to head to England in this kind of new era of players going to England. Didn't really find his feet there. He then went to the MLS, and he's been there basically ever since leaving Nottingham Forest. He's at Real Salt Lake. Now he's at Orlando, and he's one of those players that I think took the opportunity as that defensive midfielder basically out of chance, and unfortunate circumstances with Matias Villasanti. That injury really derailed sort of his time for the Paraguay national team and obviously his place too. But Ojeda comes in, and he's always someone that also is a bit of a debate. Some people maybe don't like him, some people think he's reliable, but I think he's also someone that, when you look at the positions that you have on that, and I think Brian can have a good shift. He's always playing. Ralph always likes to mention him a lot. He's someone that has really good numbers when it comes to, duels won and then tackles and passing and all that kind of front. And I think that's important when it comes to someone that, when it gets tough and some of the midfielders are tired, you want someone to help kind of control the game as best as I can. I think, Brian is best suited at that.
Yeah, I think it's the backup for Andres Cubas also, right? I mean, that was probably the decision making heading into this name. I mean, who is going to take over when we don't have Andres Cubas or when we need two defensive midfielders? I think that could be Brian Ojeda, right? He's that fighter, just like you said. He has really good numbers, getting the ball back and making the next pass to be that offensive team. And he's made some mistakes along the way. That's why I don't think he's gotten people with him yet. Some fans don't like his name that much in this list. I'm one of those guys. Also, I gotta say, the last games that I've
You got
seen,
to admit it. It's fine. That's totally
the
valid.
last games that I've seen from him in the national team, he hasn't shown enough for him. But that's a hard place to fit, right? I mean, at a certain point, it could have been Lucas Romero also who came in those last games, but Brian has always been there. He's been more consistent, being always called up, especially under Gustavo Alfaro, and he's been playing for the national team, I believe, since 2021. So he's been in this team over 5 years. He's lived it before. I think that also goes into him, but he needs to step it up. I believe in this World Cup, he's gonna have to show me much more than he has so far if he wants to have minutes.
Agree. And I think someone else that also has to step it up, and we'll talk about it, but still someone that is also kind of reliable, is Matias Galarza. Matias Galarza, number 23, 24 years old, 5'9", playing at Atlanta United, but obviously he's now back at River because his loan ended. But nevertheless, he is on this squad, and he got another weird career for him. Certainly someone that clearly is talented on his day. Let's go on that end. I think he's a very talented player when he wants to be. We saw that in the game against Uruguay, him being kind of enjoyable to watch and really that kind of battler, very talented left-footed midfielder. Actually could have played for Bolivia, think about it, because of his father, but he decided to play for La Roja instead of La Verde. But it's been weird for him. I think he's a very important player, for Paraguay when he needs to be, but he's had quite a rough club career, I would say. He really didn't find his seat. He was very good at Talleres. Many people thought he was going to go for a European move. He goes to River Plate, not really found his feet there. Now he's at Atlanta. Didn't really show too much, but I think he's still, again, one of those guys that you want to have in that midfield when everything gets tired from Andres, for Damian, or from Diego. I think he's still someone that is important, and it shows that he cares when he does play for this national team. It's always hard to play well for both. I mean, we've definitely seen that from players that play well for the national team and bad for their club and vice versa. But I think Matias kind of breaks, hopefully, that stereotype that if he does well for the national team, that kind of helps him later when he comes back to his club.
Yeah, we've seen it before, right? I mean, players that play better in their national team than they do in their clubs, they play with their heart, with that garra that we love to see here in Paraguay, and he really shows that in every single play, in every single opportunity that he has to when he plays with the national team, and that's what I love from him, that he brings in that energy, maybe that Andres Cubas also brings, that he brings in that fight, but he's more of a box to box kind of midfielder, right? And he can give you the attack, even playing on the sides. I think he is a player that fits in more in that Diego Gómez role when we don't have Diego. Uh, he can give you a hand in that sense. I mean, he can be an important piece in that midfield in certain games, especially in the second half when you need that spark and somebody to come in and fight for every single ball. I think he's going to be important because he was important in those last games in the qualifiers, and I do think he's going to have a playing time, even though he hasn't been convincing in Atlanta, in River especially. He made a huge mistake that cost him, I believe, his way out. They opened up the door after that sloppy play from him at the end of the last season, but he can make it up for himself, and here in the country is totally different. They love what he's brought to the national team every time he's had an opportunity, and he is a player that came from Olympia, right? He never played pretty much in Olympia before leaving the country, but he is one of those players that came from a big academy. He has that mindset of going for big games, of going for big tasks. So I hope Matias Galarza can somehow leave footprint in this next World Cup.
Absolutely. And another one that is also going to try to leave his footprint on this World Cup squad is another kid. And another kid, I say he's 24, but he is a kid, basically. Number 11, Mauricio Magallanes, 24 years old, 5'9" from Palmeiras, center attacking midfielder, winger. Someone that also went in through the window and because of his family. His grandparents is Paraguayan. I think his father lived some time in Paraguay, but someone that tried to be on the squad for quite some time. He actually even played for the under 23 side for Brazil. So, but he decided to opt for the family from, his father's side of the family. And, I think he's someone that is open to debate sometimes, maybe taking some position. But I like this guy. I really do. I really enjoy him. Obviously he's the first Brazilian born player on the World Cup team. It could have been Carlos Coronel, but he's not on the squad, unfortunately. But it seems like he's very proud to play for Paraguay, Fede. You even saw that at an Instagram post that I saw yesterday of him wearing the Paraguay shirt, saying how happy he is to represent all his family, even wearing the Paraguay shirt on his debut. I remember that. That was such a nice moment to see. But I think he's also someone that when you look at what he can do, he could do everything. He could play in the center mid, he could play as a winger, he could play as a 10. I think he's gonna be versatile. I don't see him as a starter as of yet, but he can really be that spark plug when the games get tough. But yeah, I mean, look, it's always hard for naturalized players to win out people. It takes a time, because of course we know as a society in Paraguay that, sometimes they have to work harder than others. We definitely saw that in the last, I'd say 30, 40 years. But I really have high hopes that Mauricio can really win the public's eyes, the public's hearts, at this World Cup. I've already been won over. I don't know if you've been won over yet, but I think a lot of people will be this month, the World Cup.
Well, I said before that not many speak Guarani. I'm not even sure Mauricio speaks that much Spanish,
Yeah, but he speaks
really.
Portuguese, so you have your two Paraguayan there's to help him, like Ramon. In a way, think about this. You got two teachers that can help you out. You got Gustavo, who again speaks Guarani, but he's the Spanish guy. Ramon, who prefers to speak Guarani and Spanish, and then you got the guy that speaks Portuguese to help them. So it's all teachers for everyone, basically.
Yeah, but out of the outsiders, he's the most outsider, right? I mean, this Mauricio Magallanes Prado, like I baptized him when he came to the national team. Mauri Prado, that sounds more Paraguayan. I love that. But hopefully they do make him that Paraguayan guy in that locker room during this training ground that they have, and hopefully he can bond with the team. I don't think we've seen enough yet to be to be on this wagon yet to see where he can fit in this team. That's what I'm looking forward in this World Cup because he's 24 years old. He's coming in maybe in one of his best time in his career. He's in and out in Palmeiras. He's not a regular to be honest, but he is a player that can organize the football, and we saw it in that game, right? That he had a couple of minutes. He was very smart about the game. He was trying to make the team play, and he was connecting the team. And we don't have many of those players. That's why I think they went straight to look for what Mauricio can bring to this team. And maybe when you're one of those guys that the coach picked you and the staff went and looked for you, just like I said with Olveira, they didn't just went and pick somebody. They went and got something that they needed that they didn't find in the rest of this team. So that could open up doors for him or give him even more minutes. I want to see more of Mauricio. I haven't seen him link up with Miggy, with Julio Enciso, and just the chemistry they can have out there. We saw very little of that in these friendlies. Unfortunately, we just had him for the friendlies. I would have loved to see him doing the qualifiers. I think he could have been a very important player because of the quality that he has. But he's one of those players that I have my doubts, Roberto, just because I haven't seen enough of him yet. And just because he's Brazilian doesn't make him all that talent, right? And there's a couple of things I'm not liking from him as of right now. I mean, he's already in there in the locker room with the Paraguayans, and he was watching the Brazilian game the other day and throwing hearts out there in the social media stuff like that. I mean, you're already with the Paraguay national team. Forget about Brazil. You gotta be all Albirroja now, and hopefully the guys get to him in that sense, and also Alfaro to have a Mauri Prado 100% for the World Cup because I do think he can be an important player in certain games.
He's as Paraguayan as all of us. Let's be real. Once, having that sangre Paraguay is also important. I mean, look at us. We both were from different parts of the
He
world.
picked us. He picked us. I give him that. He picked us
He
after
picked
all.
us. Let's be
It
real.
took him a while. It took him a while, but he ended up picking the right
Not
country.
only that, but Alfaro was convinced as well. He could have easily been someone that, okay, he chose us, but I'm not going to pick him on the squad. No, the fact that he got the confidence of the coach, I think also speaks levels to say, okay, this guy can do something. And another guy that could also do something to finish off the midfielders. Whew, it's been a lot, but we're almost there. Number 24, the 24-year-old Gustavo Caballero, 6'2" from Portsmouth on loan from Santos, the midfielder winger. I mean, this is it's been a big rise for him as well. He's someone that made his mark at Capietà, then he played at Ameliano, then he was at Nacional, and that's kind of where he made his mark, being on that Paraguay U23 team that ended up winning the going to the Olympics. He was someone that obviously was super important in that Olympics. I enjoyed watching him play when I was in Paris for the Olympics. I thought he was a very talented player. I thought he had something to go with him. He goes to Santos, and then now he's in the EFL Championship at Portsmouth. We'll have to wait and see if he's going to stay there or if he's at Santos or whatever happened to him. But this is a guy, and he's, of course, the last guy to score for Paraguay in a game. And I think that goal got him to the World Cup, and let's be real. But, he's that pacey winger that you want to have when things are getting tough for a lot of these guys. And I think he could be very much reliable. I think he's also one of those under the radar guys that the world doesn't really know much about. But yeah, for Gustavo, it's been quite a great rise. And, he was kind of that wild card to make this World Cup squad. I think those performances in March back against Morocco and Greece got him on the plane to North America.
Yeah, and we don't have that many attacking wingers playing in Europe, right? Even though he does play in second division, whatever, it is still one of the biggest leagues in the world. He plays for Portsmouth, and ever since he went into that league, he did quite all right. I mean, he even scored a couple goals. He made the difference with his speed, and I don't know if it was that goal in the friendly that made him win his spot over. I think it's just the way that he plays, the way that he approaches the game, how slick he is out there, and just how fast he is. I don't think there's a faster guy than him playing as a winger as of right now. If you look all around the world, I mean, I remember Gustavo Alfaro tried very different wingers during the qualifiers, and Gustavo Caballero is probably the one that fits him best after the Olympics. That was a huge tournament for him. That's the tournament that really opened up the doors for him leaving the country and then going even into Europe, and hopefully he can make an impact in this World Cup. I think he's gonna be need to be ready when Julio Enciso is tired, when we need to counterattack, and Gustavo Caballero can make that difference. He's so fast out there on the counterattacks. He can really break through, and I'm hoping to see that Gustavo Caballero that I've seen along his career, a player that can make the difference with his speed mainly, but he's also, I believe, a very smart player. He can take out one or two guys before even scoring. He has that agility in him, and he reminds me a lot of, I don't know if Miguel Almirón is the right player to compare him to, but you see him physically, the way that he plays and the way that he moves around players, how much ground he can cover. I think he still has so much to learn. I think he's gonna evolve as a player. Just being in this squad, I don't think we've seen the best of Gustavo Caballero yet. I think he's gonna grow and grow as a player now playing in Europe.
100%. 100%. He's very someone that I'm very excited to see at the World Cup and for his career. Let's go to the forwards to finish it up. We got a couple more names to finish up. We have five, so let's make it great. Number 9, Antonio Sanabria, 30 years old, 5'11" from Cremonese, the guy that scored the famous bicycle kick against Argentina, the top goal scorer of the World Cup qualifying process for Paraguay, goals against Venezuela. Obviously, very much someone that really finally found his feet for Paraguay because, it's been a long process for him. He's always been sort of that great hope. We remember him when he went to La Masia at Barcelona. Everyone thought that he was going to make that squad at La Blaugrana. He then ended up leaving his native Spain, because it was really his native Spain. He went to Spain very young. I think he was 10 years old, 11 years old, went to Barcelona, and then he was part of that academy, one of the few Paraguayans to do it. Obviously someone that had stayed in the European game, playing across Italy and Spain, Sassuolo, Roma, Gijon, Betis, Genoa, Torino, now at Cremonese. So he's been that European player, but it feels like he, was never able to really find his feet for Paraguay until as of recently, scoring goals in those important games against Venezuela, against Argentina, even against Bolivia under Garnett, if you remember, he did score that goal. So that's kind of why he is the top goal scorer. But it's weird from him. I think getting the number nine is such an important responsibility for any player. But yeah, I mean, this is someone that, and we'll talk about the other strikers in a bit, but it's very weird with him that he's had quite an interesting season that he left Torino, went to Cremonese, who just got relegated after getting promoted from Serie A. They're back in Serie B. But he's been underwhelming. He hasn't been scoring. He's barely been playing, but he still has his heart and his desire to play for Paraguay. Alfaro really trusts him. But I think from the story that got him to here, he even promised in a famous documentary with Andres Guardado saying, "I'm going to play at the World Cup." And now he gets to complete his promise, playing at the World Cup over there in North America. But he's coming with the target on his back. Let's be real. It is that number nine on his back, but also a target one as well.
Yeah, he's a center forward, and people love him because of that. People are expecting goals from him. We don't need another bicycle goal, a bicycle kick goal from you, Tony. We just need a couple of goals during this World Cup. He hasn't always brought those numbers in his career, being a top goal scorer, but he's showing up in big moments, right? And he gets along really well with certain players, I believe, and he's the only one that has been able to make that long career in Europe as one of the forwards. So I think that's kind of earned him that spot, even the place where he was born. Just him coming out as a player in the Barcelona academy, it already made him special when he was very young. That's why they brought him to the country to make him play for that under 15, under 17 when he was just starting out to have minutes over there. And ever since, it's been a long trip, but maybe we finally have that Tony Sanabria that we've always wanted to see in the national team, right? We got some cold strikers. I don't like the way that, they don't show themselves that much. They don't show that much that personality. They don't show that fire in them. Like, I don't know, other forwards that we used to have in other World Cups. But Tony Sanabria, he can be a silent killer, and hopefully he heads into that World Cup in that same way, right? We can say the same thing about Avalos, Alex Arce. They are all those kind of cold strikers, but some of them have better numbers than Tony heading into this World Cup. Let's be realistic. These last 6 months have been really bad for Tony Sanabria.
They have been, but now he has the best opportunity possible to really shut some people down. I mean, it's hard to be a striker at the World Cup. We've seen that in the past, but I think hopefully Tony can break a lot of those stereotypes. We have to wait and see if he is the main starter for this one, because of course he has the competition, and of course the competition that he has on that squad. We're going to our next guy, number 21, Gabriel Avalos, 34 years old, 6 feet, Independiente striker. What a career it's been for him, Fede. Let's be real. It's been crazy to see him make that move across everywhere. He's from Itapúa. He's from a long way from Asunción, man. Let's be real. But he's been around the block. Even, he's playing at Independiente Campo Grande, General Diaz. Then he went to Chile. Then he was going around Argentina. I think he was finally discovered when he was starting to get some goals at Argentinos Juniors. That's when he started to make his role. And, he's obviously now at Independiente doing very well for Independiente. Always been that target striker, the number nine. But similar to Tony, he needs to make his impression at the World Cup. I mean, certainly for him, it's going to be his only opportunity at a World Cup because of his age. But, when you look at pure numbers, and I think a lot of people understand that you want someone that is not only a good player, but also coming in good form, he fits that role. And I think he could be someone that could be useful, maybe more as a second half player. I think he's still someone that is going to open the debate, as a lot of these strikers will.
Yeah, but you might need him, right, in certain games just because he picked late in his career, but he's always scoring. I mean, he's so consistent in that sense in the Argentinian league. I don't know if that's the that's the best level to compare what's gonna happen now in the World Cup, if he's gonna be able to be himself in the World Cup or even in this national team because he barely gets minutes with these guys, he is that second or backup forward, I would say. I don't think he's going to have the starting job over Tony or even Alex Arce or Isidro Pita, that's more of a fighter. I think Avalos is going to have his minutes. He's going to have his opportunities, and hopefully he can make the best of them. In this last game, I think, he had that chance against Morocco's, and he had a couple of opportunities, and he didn't make the best of them. He wasn't able to shine there. He wasn't able to score, and when you're a striker, you feed from that. You need those goals, and hopefully he can score a couple in this World Cup, and hopefully we can remember his contribution in a couple games. He's such a huge forward. He's one of those strong forwards that we have. That's why I think physically he makes a difference, and he's one of those guys. I remember you asked me before we went on the air, Roberto, who is a player that back in the days you didn't think was going to make it to the national team? Probably Gabriel Avalos. He was a player that when I saw him starting out in General Diaz, when I saw him going to Crucero del Norte, to small clubs like that, I didn't think he was going to make it to the big stage. But then all of a sudden, I saw him in Argentinos Junior under Gabriel Militos, and that's the club that I believe turned him around, right? I mean, that's when he started getting hot, started scoring, making a name for himself, and his numbers have been peaking and peaking ever since. He goes in hot into this World Cup, and we might need a couple of goals from him.
And another one that is also going to be coming off hot of goals is the guy from Carepeguá, from Paraguay, also a long way from Asuncion, where they're based right now, or Panama, basically, is Alex Arce. Alex Arce, number 18, 30 years old, 6'2", currently playing as a striker at Independiente Rivadavia. I mean, this is someone that we obviously remember of him bursting onto the scene at Sportivo Emiliano. He was at Intermedia. He helped them gain promotion. Then they go and become kind of the darlings of Paraguayan football, winning, Super Copas and, Copa Paraguays and all that kind of stuff. He's been such an important player. Then he goes to Independiente Rivadavia, scoring a ton of goals over there as well. He was even top goal scorer, I think, in the first division, or in the second division, going in there. Then he makes the move to Liga de Quito, scores goals over there. Now he's back at Rivadavia. He's currently top goal scorer of the Copa Libertadores, which is obviously very important for us because not a lot of people can say that, and that he's Paraguayan. But also he needs to get his redemption, I guess, on the national team. He's only had a few chances, at least under this Alfaro thing. I think he's played 10 games and he scored one goal. I was actually there the day he scored his first goal against the US, ironically enough. So that's he already knows the American players well. But yeah, it's been crazy for him as well. He's always been that guy that is scoring goal. People thought, we don't know if we can trust him enough to be on the squad, if we're gonna bring so many strikers, whatever. Ended up doing that, of course. But I think someone that I feel on numbers alone, like I said, deserves to be on that World Cup squad.
I think Alfaro, this was one of the things that gave him a headache, getting that list together, right? I mean, seeing all these strikers make a difference in their teams, seeing Alex Arce get hot right on time, top scorer of the Libertadores. How can you leave him out, right? Same thing with Avalos and his numbers in Argentina lately. I mean, Pita having his moment now again in Brazil after coming back from the injury. I mean, you kind of were obligated to make them a spot in this list, and I'm really happy to see Alex Arce there. I think he can be so important in scoring. If it was just up to numbers, if football was just up to numbers, he would probably be our center forward because he's probably the guy that scored the most goals over these last 6 years, 5 years, I would even say, in Paraguayan football. And his story is just crazy, Roberto. I was looking at some of these guys' story, and his is probably the craziest because Alex Arce, during the pandemic just 6 years ago, he had to go back to Carapeguá because he was playing in Cerro Porteño, and they told him the reserve wasn't going to be played for a whole year. So he was off football professionally, and he started selling hammocks, blankets, and the typical handicrafts that they sell here. His head wasn't even in football anymore, and here he is now, right, going into the World Cup as Libertadores top scorer just 6 years later. And that's how crazy football is. And his numbers have been just off the charts. Nobody can even compare to the kind of seasons and numbers that he had in these last couple of years. So I'm really excited to have him on our team. Hopefully, they can make that top goal scorer that we've seen in clubs into that national team player that we just haven't seen yet. The team needs to play for him much more if they want to see Alex Arce and all that firepower that he has in him. But he's another one that if he gets hot, he can have those games where he can score 2, 3 goals easily. He's done that many times along his career.
Absolutely. And another guy, you just mentioned him, our last striker, but our penultimate player that we'll talk on this squad, Isidro Pita, 26 years old, 6 feet, Red Bull Bragantino striker. Again, this is someone that we remember as the first striker from the Alfaro era. His first game against Uruguay, he was there. And then, again, another weird career for him. He's been around the block. He started at Cerro Porteño, but obviously didn't spend so much time there. Then he goes to Santaní, then he was at Luqueño, then he played for Olimpia, then he makes his move to Spain, then he went to Brazil, where he's been ever since, at Juventud, at Cuyaba, at Red Bull Bragantino, kind of those lower level teams, but he's still scoring goals, Fede. He is scoring goals at the right time, and people were asking for him. El Vicano, he is a Viking. He looks like one. I mean, come on. How can you not bring this guy to the World Cup, I'd say. But yeah, it's good to see him. And again, 4 strikers from Alfaro on the day, but he needs a goal for Paraguay. He has not scored at all for them as of yet, ever since he's playing. He's been in and around the squad for quite some time, but now it's his time to really prove that he can do something.
Yeah, and out of the forwards that we have, he's the fighter, right? I mean, he's the one that can pressure high. He's the one that can probably make it hard for the center backs. We kind of used him in that sense in certain games, and then brought in Tony Sanabria in the second half. He brings you that Viking mentality. It's not just about the nickname and the way that he looks or his appearance. It's about the way that he plays also. He loves to fight for the ball. He's never leaving anything behind. Uh, and he'll follow the defenders into the locker room and just to try to get the ball back, right? I mean, that's how much of the dirty work he does. That's why Alfaro, I think, loves him. That's why he was probably his first striker when he started out. And let's not forget Tony Sanabria wasn't there yet. They had to they had to convince him to come back to the national team. So Peter already gave you a hint in the worst times. He already showed you that he can be that player, that strategy player when you need him to be in certain games. And he's been scoring lately in Bragantino. He even became a captain of that Brazilian team. So you got to feel good about his current status and him going into this World Cup, 26 years old. I think he could be in probably his prime right now. He could be in one of his best form, and I'm excited to see Isidro Pita. He's a player that I love watching in Bragantino just because of the way that he approaches the game, fights every single ball, and he can score. He can also score. He's not a top scorer like Alex Arce or Avalos. He doesn't have those numbers this season, neither these last couple of years, but he's one of those players that can be a strategy, Roberto. When we don't need to attack them much, when we need somebody to get those center backs tired for the second half, I do think he might even be a starter. He was the first and he was the last to come into the hotel of the Paraguay
But he,
national team.
but the last name that we will mention, and of course the guy that everyone is going to be excited about, our best player, I think our best player, Fede. Unless you have something else to say, do you think he's their best player? Don't even have to say the name.
Oh, yeah.
All
Oh,
right.
yeah. He's our star.
He is
La
our
Joya.
star. He is our jewel. He is our diamond. He is number 19, Julio Enciso, 22 years old, 5'6" at Strasbourg. I mean, this guy, his kid has really, really going to be a lot of attention on him. Someone that has been really the star of Paraguay during this entire qualifying process, someone that Alfaro has fully trust, as someone that has been, bags of pace, flares, goals. We saw that already at Libertad when he was breaking out. You have to remember, he was one of the youngest players on that Copa America side back in 2021 in the pandemic era. Then he makes his move to Brighton at 18 years old. He has that breakthrough, scores one of the best goals in the Premier League, the best goal actually in the Premier League, got nominated for the Puskas. And he's been one of those rising talents. It's been a weird career for him, of course, at such a young age. He had to deal with injuries, some things off the off the pitch as well. He's definitely polarizing to some, but after the performances that he had during this qualifying process under Alfaro, he's really gained all the attention from Paraguay and all the love, I would say. You see him everywhere. Kids want to be like him. Everyone from Paraguay seems to adore him, even at such a young age. He got married, not too long ago to a Colombian. So, he's someone that I think is destined for greatness, similar to Diego, the guy from Kawasu. He's not always someone that we always had to adore 100%. We've been critical of him. Let's be real, Fede. We've definitely been critical of him and his decisions. He's been around the block at Ipswich, Brighton. Now he's at Strasbourg, really finding his form, really doing so well, really finding his feet. And yeah, I'm excited to see what this guy does. Out of all the 26 names, this is the guy that you circle out of anyone to really stand out and help Paraguay do well at this World Cup.
Yeah, if Julio Enciso has a good World Cup, it means that Paraguay are gonna shine, right? Because he is that kind of quality player. He's the difference maker. He can score from anywhere in the pitch, and he can take out as many guys as he wants. He's our Messi. He's our difference maker. He's our top player. I mean, he's our star, and every team wants a player like Julio Enciso. I think even other South American teams are looking at us now and saying, "Hey, you got a 22-year-old that's playing like that in Europe. That's doing these kind of things in France. That has done these kind of things against the big teams in England. Also, let's not forget the goal that he scored against Manchester City. Also." That was nominated for Puskas. I mean, Julio Enciso has been everywhere, right? And his journey, I mean, let's not forget, 2010, he was just 6 years old, man, and he was still in Kawasu in his hometown. He always talks about it, that World Cup turning his life around. It was probably the last that he was able to watch with his grandfather. He has that legacy also. He wants to play this World Cup because of a promise that was made to his grandfather. He's going to be very emotional, I believe, during this whole World Cup. But for me, it's been the evolution of Julio Enciso becoming that kid, that rebel in field, in the games, and becoming more mature, becoming more intelligent, knowing what to do with the ball, knowing when to pass it instead of having it all the time. Just little details of the game that when the ball is in the feet of somebody that can make so many plays, that can do so many things with it. You want the ball to be always with him, but he needs to be smart about it. And I think he's learned that. I think Alfaro also came into his life at the right time. It hasn't just been Gustavo Alfaro; it's been his staff, the surroundings. They really worked in his head, and they've really been able to put Julio Cesar Enciso on track with this team. And I'm so excited with Julio Enciso probably being one of the players that can surprise the world in this World Cup. I think every Paraguayan that has seen what Julio Enciso can bring to this team knows that Julio Enciso can be a star in this upcoming World Cup.
100%. And, that is it. That is our list. And, just before we finish it off here, because it's been long, but hey, we deserve it. A special episode, Fede. It's been 16 years since the World Cup. This is probably going to be our longest episode of all time. Who cares? I mean, if we had Ralph, it'd be two times longer, but it doesn't matter. We're back at the World Cup. We have that World Cup here. We deserve to mention all these guys. We do have to mention some of the guys that didn't make the squad, some that had been part of the process. Players like, I'll go in the goalkeepers like Carlos Coronel, defense like Blas Riveros, Alan Benitez, Agustín Standes, Diego León, Ronaldo Jesus, Alcide Benitez, well, he was on the squad, but, him, Alexis Duarte. When you look at the midfield, Matias Villasanti is such an important player, but he tore his ACL at the wrong time. People thought maybe he could have been on that squad, but unfortunately, Alfaro did not think he was good enough and healthy enough. Diego Gonzalez, someone that people were really surprised about in the late last year. He misses out. Hugo Cuenca, very young player. I think he still has a big future ahead of him. Same with players like Lucas Romero, Enzo Gonzalez, Ruben Descano. The Romero twins, they're not going to play in a World Cup. Unfortunately, I think, Fede, they're both 33. Both of them will not get the chance to do it. Alan Barreiro, someone that many people thought could have made this squad, but unfortunately injury came to him. Lorenzo Milgarejo, Ronaldo Martinez, someone who also, he was the starting goalkeeper the day that we qualified for the World Cup, actually. And many others as well that have been in that process. And of course, all the other players that have been kind of this process for the last 16 years, you know. it's unfortunate. I was thinking of players like, Cecilio Dominguez, Juan Iturbe, many other players that, could have easily had the chance to play for Paraguay in this time. Of course, it all depends on age and all that kind of stuff, that happens, sometimes it's not easy to be there, but you look at all the other, I'm not going to name everyone. I'll send you a list later, Fede, of all the players that, got called up in the national team in the process since 2014 in Brazil, and then in this one that won't go to the World Cup, but it's hard to make a World Cup squad. It's hard to keep that consistency for quite some time. But yeah, I mean, I gotta ask you, man. Do you feel like these are the best 26 names? Was there a name where you thought, he should have been there? Now's your time to change. I personally think the only issue I had maybe is the imbalance of strikers in comparison to midfielders. Maybe you want to take a striker out, but I genuinely do not have a problem with the squad. I think it's the best squad that Alfaro can bring. So that's my personal opinion. Now the floor is yours.
I'm a fan right now, Roberto, and I'm trusting Alfaro. I'm not gonna say a single bad thing about any of these names more than I've said about certain players that I have my doubts over. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of players that were left out. Unfortunately, they went through the worst time, and they even made some big moves to try to show themselves to Alfaro, try to win more game time. The Romero twins were two of those. We had Alan Barreiro also making a run with his numbers. Unfortunately, a couple of injuries also left out. Matias Villasanti, Blas Riveros. That was a very unfortunate injury in the Super Clásico where he should not have played. So you go back to those decisions, and yeah, you're definitely going to be crying. You're definitely going to be affected by this situation if you're there. But it's now you're just on the other side. Now you just got to root for these guys. And I loved what Angel Romero did in his social media. I saw he posted something, and just now it's them, now it's these guys. Unfortunately, football is like that. Sometimes you're in, sometimes you're out, and now it's the opportunity just to root for the guys that are going to the World Cup. They're the ones that are going to represent us, and no matter where they were born, no matter how long they've been playing with this jersey, what matters is what they're going to bring in this World Cup. And hopefully Gustavo Alfaro made the right calls, because so far he's done everything so perfectly, Roberto, that you cannot say a single thing about Gustavo Alfaro and his decision making. I'm even surprised about what he's done so far in this team. The only name that I wanted to see truly in that list was Gustavo Alfaro. And the only name that I'm worried about heading into this World Cup is Gustavo Alfaro. If he's 100%, I know the rest of the team will be, because ever since he took over, Roberto, I've been happy. We've been going back to the World Cup, and everything has just gone back to how it should have been.
He's making us believers, man. He's making us going into this World Cup as believers. And being part of this show it's been a long process as well. Been doing this now for 6 years, and we got the dream of watching Paraguay at a World Cup and talking about it as well. That's the beauty thing as well. We'll get more emotional once the World Cup starts, but and once we get Ralph back, and also mention Maria, who's part of this process as well. I'm sure she's gonna be very excited to see Paraguay at the World Cup, as it's been 16 very long years. I'm just going to finish out with some final stats for you before we close it out. Average age is 28. If you go by average age of position, the goalkeepers 32, defenders 30, midfielders 27, and forwards 28. Youngest player is Alexandro Maidana at 20. Oldest player is Gatito Fernández at 38. The total average height is 5'11". If you go for goalkeepers, it's 6'3". Defenders 6'1", midfielders 5'9", forwards 5'11". Tallest player, and this is thanks to FIFA, by the way. FIFA gave us a document of all the players, of where they were from, obviously the date of birth, their jersey numbers, and of course their heights. And after doing that, it's Jose Canale as the tallest player at 6'3" and a half, 1 meter 92. And the shortest player is Kaku Romero Gamarra at 165 at 5'5". Looking at the league breakdown, 7 players from Brazil, 3 from Palmeiras, 1 at Atlético Mineiro, 1 at Grêmio, 1 at São Paulo, and 1 at Red Bull Bragantino. 5 players from Argentina, San Lorenzo, Lanús, Talleres, Independiente Rivadavia. The Paraguay's 3 players in the local league, 2 from Cedro, 1 from Olympia. 3 players from England, Sunderland, Brighton and Hove Albion, and Portsmouth. 3 in the MLS, with 2 players in Atlanta, 2 at Atlanta United, 1 at Orlando City, and 1 at Vancouver Whitecaps. So that's 4 players in MLS. one player in Italy at Cremonese, one player in France at Strasbourg, one player at Dynamo Moscow in Russia, and one player from the United Arab Emirates at Al Ain. So that's 15 players in South America, 6 players in Europe, 4 players in North America, and 1 player in Asia. And I will give you the list one more time, Fede, so that you can have that right in your memory that you will remember as this World Cup squad. Number 1, Roberto Junior Fernández. Number 2, Gustavo Velázquez. Number 3, Omar Alderete. Number 4, Juan Cáceres. Number 5, Fabian Balbuena. Number 6, Junior Alonso. Number 7, Ramon Sosa. Number 8, Diego Gómez. Number 9, Antonio Sanabria. Number 10, Miguel Almirón. Number 11, Mauricio. Number 12, Orlando Gill. Number 13, José Canale. Number 14, Andrés Cubas. Number 15, Gustavo Gómez. Number 16, Damian Bobadilla. Number 17, Alejandro Romero Gamarra. Number 18, Alex Arce. Number 19, Julio Enciso. Number 20, Brian Ojeda. Number 21, Gabriel Avalos. Number 22, Gastón Olveira. Number 23, Matías Galarza. Number 24, Gustavo Caballero. Number 25, Isidro Pita. Number 26, Alexandro Maidana. The head coach, Gustavo Alfaro. After that, Fed, any last words after all the information that we did? I am ready to conquer this bad boy. I am ready for it. Let's be real. You look
Yeah,
at
I'm
this.
with
Don't you
you.
dream? Aren't you dreaming, man?
Oh, I am dreaming, and everybody's talking about it. Everybody's saying here, we can be champions. Let's aim for it. We got our 26. The flight is already there. The plane is waiting for the boys. We're already thinking about the U.S. We're on our way. You got the World Cup there. Everybody's mind is in the U.S. We are back at the World Cup. Special coverage here in Guarani Vision. Keep enjoying it.
Enjoying it as we always will do throughout the entire tournament as we close out this special preview episode of the World Cup squad and all the analysis that we have to bring for the World Cup. Like, share, subscribe on all platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere, TikTok. Will be there as we close out another great episode for myself, Roberto Rojas, and Fede Perez. Thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.